Before the NBA trade deadline, we made a video predicting that role players were going to headline the trade market. And we were pretty spot on. Of the 10 role players that we mentioned as names that were likely on the move, 7 of them were either traded or signed after getting bought out. And before that, we predicted that Pascal Siakam would get traded to the Indiana Pacers, which he did. Our channel definitely doesn't claim to have any insider information, but we do our research in order to make educated and realistic predictions and analysis. So thanks for keeping up with us, and please subscribe to our channel, because we're just getting started here at Sports Insight. And we appreciate your continued support of our channel. With that being said, in this video, we're going to break down the moves that the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns made in order to bolster their rosters in preparation for the playoffs. Let's get right into it. First up, let's take a look at the Dallas Mavericks, who we made a video about right when the season was starting, and mentioned that after spiraling down the stretch last season, they would return to contender status this year. However, despite making moderate improvements and receiving incredible play from their lethal backcourt combo of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, the team has continued to suffer in the same areas they did last season. Those areas are defense and rebounding. While Derek Lively's shown plenty of promise in his rookie season, he's still developing and can't be expected to be the only rebounder and shot blocker on the roster, and the other acquisitions haven't quite panned out as hoped. Richaun Holmes, who was brought in to play center when Lively's off the floor, never showed a level of impact or consistency needed from a contending team. Seth Curry's proven to be a redundant acquisition because of his defensive limitations and the Mavs' elite backcourt scoring. And lastly, Grant Williams, who the team had extremely high hopes for, has been solid, but an ill fit considering the Mavs' needs. Williams has been a serviceable defender and a legitimate three-point threat on offense, and his lack of athleticism and verticality left the Mavs vulnerable on defense. So Dallas decided to attempt to steer the ship and parlay those pieces along with draft pick capital in exchange for replacements that can help in their areas of need. First, they traded Richaun Holmes and draft pick compensation to the Washington Wizards in exchange for their 25-year-old starting center, Daniel Gafford. Gafford sure as hell won't be hitting any threes, but the 6'10" center immediately becomes the Mavericks' best shot blocker and one of their top rebounders as well. On top of that, he has some scoring abilities around the bucket that'll be highlighted by the Mavericks' guards' dynamic passing abilities. But they weren't done there. The Mavs made an even bigger splash by sending Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a 2027 first-round pick to Charlotte in exchange for P.J. Washington. Washington isn't quite as accurate as Grant Williams from 3, but he is a significantly more explosive athlete. This is a player that the Mavs are hoping can guard multiple positions, clean up the glass, and provide some versatility both inside and out on both ends of the floor. Right now, both these players are 25 years old, and neither have had the opportunity to play for winning teams. And they're both locked into contracts with the Mavericks for multiple years after this one. Even though they traded a first-round pick, this isn't a short-sighted move by the Mavericks management. Clearly, they've identified both these players as young athletes with untapped upside that can become key contributors to the Mavs' rebuild this season, but more importantly, for future seasons as well. The other team we want to take a look at today is the Phoenix Suns, who didn't make a huge splash at the trade deadline, but did participate in one multi-team trade. The deal saw them trade away 4 roster players, Yuta Watanabe, Keita Bates-Diop, Jordan Goodwin, and Chimezie Metu, as well as a second-round pick. And in return, the Suns brought in 2 new roster players, Royce O'Neal from Brooklyn and David Roddy from Memphis. This trade was interesting for a few reasons. First off, it's a loud message from owner Matt Ishbia, who bought a majority stake of the team last season and has been extremely hands-on and vocal since he arrived. Before Ishbia arrived, the Suns had a competitive roster that recently made a trip to the NBA Finals. But as soon as Ishbia stepped in, he made his own mark on the team. He pushed for management to trade for Kevin Durant as well as Bradley Beal and then Yusuf Nurkic. In no time at all, the Suns had completely overhauled their roster and looked completely different. Many have criticized the Suns for having an unbalanced roster and pigeonholing themselves by trading away too many assets too early, while also making massive financial commitments to a small group of players. Early this season, it was looking like the critics were correct, as the Suns struggled to stay healthy and couldn't defend for their lives. But as the season has progressed, the Suns have quietly improved and all of a sudden are starting to look like a sleeper team in the Western Conference. This trade at the deadline doubled down on Ishbia's financial commitment to winning. They added salary and now have to pay an additional $24 million or so in taxes, additional to the contracts of the players added. It's a very steep price to pay to add Royce O'Neal, who's the player that'll bring them further above the luxury tax line. So one might ask why the Suns agreed to the deal. Well, in a sense, Ishbia dug the team into this hole by telling management to make such aggressive moves, and he's showing the world that he's not afraid to continue to pay plenty more in order to do whatever it takes to win. I can assure you that despite plenty of NBA owners having more money than we could imagine, very few of them would let management make a trade like this. Ishbia, though, is at Suns practices and has become a major part of Suns culture, much like Mark Cuban in Dallas. And the players he brought in do bring intriguing skill sets that could help the Suns improve on some of their weaknesses. Royce O'Neal, for starters, is a big, strong veteran that isn't tall at 6'4", but is solid as a rock and can contribute at both ends of the court. His passing and shooting should fit into the Suns' offense that primarily depends on half-court sets to score buckets, and his defensive prowess will strengthen the Suns on the back end as well. David Roddy is a very interesting and unique young player as well who shouldn't be overlooked in this deal. The 22-year-old sophomore worked his way into the Grizzlies' rotation and is sort of a jack-of-all-trades type as well. A dominant force at Colorado State University, many doubted that his game would translate to the NBA level. At 6'4" and over 250 pounds, the elite college rebounder didn't exactly have an NBA frame. But much like many other college stars who were doubted because they didn't fit the prototype of a standard player at any NBA position, David Roddy's proving that talent comes in all shapes and sizes. Roddy's a physical defender with a natural knack for the game. He's working on his perimeter shooting and is likely to improve in that area, but on top of that, he defends hard, fights for rebounds, and cuts to the basket. Big body Roddy's destined to become a fan favorite in Phoenix, and his energy and physicality will be a welcomed addition. We're not saying that we think the Suns are going to the finals this year, but what we will say is that the top teams in the Western Conference are all probably hoping that they don't get matched up against the Suns in the first round, because they will be a very tough matchup for anyone. But let us know what you thought about these moves. What are the chances that the Suns or Mavs make it out of the West this season? Let us know in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more sports news and insights.